once again to the Through the Grapevine podcast. I am your host, Uta Mitchell. And before we meet today's special guest, I want to remind you that the shop is live, has been for a week now, and you can purchase your custom hand stamped jewelry right now. Have any questions about it, just message me and we'll get that figured out. So the link, of course, is going to be, as always, in the show notes. So let's get going. My guest today is a lovely lady that I've had the pleasure to work with, but whom I have not yet met in person. So this will be fun. Maggie Craig is a buyer for wine.com and she is located in Los Angeles. And today we'll talk a little bit about her journey as a woman in the wine industry. So welcome, Maggie.
Hi, Uta. Thank you for having me.
So this is excited because Maggie and I have been playing tag for, I'm gonna say, about a year.
Sounds about right. Yep.
And it's really great that this is finally happening. So I'm gonna just get started with my first question. I know that you've been working in an industry for about 10 years. Can you tell me about how you found the industry and why you got started in it?
Sure. Well, I moved to California from North Carolina about 10 years ago. The wine industry doesn't really exist in North Carolina, or at least I didn't know that it existed. I always loved wine. I always loved other cultures. I actually studied international relations in college.
All right.
I thought I was going to get into marketing with my degree, but I moved to California kind of just on a whim. I just wanted to get a change of pace, sort of check out what the West Coast had to offer.
Mhm.
And it's incredibly hard to get a job.
Wow.
When I graduated in 2014, everybody was moving to San Francisco. It seemed like the tech industry was booming. There was,
Mhm.
growth happening there, all kinds of new companies. And I just sort of wanted to see what was going on. So when I got here, or I should say there, I recently relocated to Los Angeles.
Right.
I was applying for jobs. I was looking for any kind of entry level position I could find, sales, marketing, whatever. But it wasn't working out. It was really competitive. So I figured I should just get a part-time gig to kind of pay the bills until I found the right thing. And I ultimately got a job at a wine shop, the Ferry Plaza Wine Merchant in San Francisco.
All right.
And it kind of just took off from there. I sort of just fell in love with wine. I fell in love with
Mm.
learning more about wine, tasting wine. And yeah, I just kind of stuck with it. I never ended up getting into marketing. I never ended up, switching to sales. But it's funny because a lot of people get into wine for different reasons. I
Mhm.
personally fell in love with it because of, my love for other cultures and travel. And it's sort of ironic how my degree in international relations sort of wove its way into my career
Mhm.
anyway in a different way than I anticipated it to. So yeah, I just kind of stumbled my way into it. Honestly, I never planned to get into beverage or wine or any of it. It just kind of happened
Yeah.
serendipitously.
Yeah, that's basically what happened to me. I mean, I wasn't looking to get into the wine industry. It was literally, I was a kickboxing instructor at the time, and
Wow.
I was just kind of, casually, scrolling on Indeed, and I saw an ad for a tasting room associate for a winery that's nearby. And I didn't know a whole lot about wine. I mean, I've been drinking wine my entire life. But I decided to give it a try anyway, and they took a chance on me. And, here we are 7 years later, and I'm still in the industry and can't quite get away from it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, the same thing happened to me. I just was sort of scrolling through Craigslist looking for whatever job I could find, and
Mhm.
I'd worked in restaurants in college, and but I've always loved drinking wine. And I just saw, oh, a wine shop, that looks kind of fun. Let me see what
Right.
that's all about. And the same thing, they
Yeah.
took a chance on me, which looking back is kind of miraculous because oftentimes, they're looking for people who already have extensive wine knowledge or a history
Right.
in the wine
Yeah.
industry and
Yeah.
more experience. So I'm grateful that, the manager at the time gave me a chance, even though I knew absolutely nothing about wine. It's
Right.
kind of funny
Yeah.
to think back to it, but it just worked out and it just kind of felt like maybe this is what was meant to be.
I hear that loud and clear. So you're currently an associate buyer for French and Italian wines for wine.com. And this is actually how we met. We both work for wine.com. Well, I no longer do, but can you tell me a little bit about what an associate buyer actually does? I do have a bit of an understanding of it, but I know lots of people will be like, I don't know what that even means.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I get the question all the time, even when I was a buyer for retail stores, brick and mortar stores. What exactly does a buyer even do? It kind of sounds glamorous when you first tell somebody who isn't as familiar with the industry, but I essentially help curate the selection on wine.com. Um, you know, it, in brick and mortar, where you're physically tasting the wine and holding the bottles and handling the inventory, you're kind of meeting with wholesalers on a personal basis, day to day, tasting different things. Whereas now, wine.com operates on a national basis. So I can't physically taste every bottle that goes on the site
Oh,
as much as
sure.
I might like to. um, yeah, so we basically coordinate with wholesalers and suppliers, which are the people who supply the wholesalers with the wine.
Mhm.
We kind of just manage the inventory and make sure, they have what they actually say they have. We, work on expanding and kind of curating new selection. We want to have, the best wine selection, not everything. We want to have,
Mhm.
everything that's good too. So yeah, it's just a lot of communicating. Day to day, it changes. Some days I'm meeting with suppliers and discussing, items that they'd like to see on the site.
Sure.
Other times I'm helping, make sure the orders are being fulfilled, making sure that, we have the right labels, which I know you're very familiar with,
Yes.
making sure content looks great on the site. But yeah, it kind of changes day to day. Sometimes I'm at a trade show, meeting with people in person. But it's not a, same day and the life of a wine buyer is the same every day.
Sure.
It's always changing. But yeah, it's that's kind of how I would describe it. I mean, I'm basically just making sure we have the best selection
Yeah.
and focusing on French and Italian.
Right, right. See, and that actually to me sounds like such a great job to have, because you're not always doing the same thing. I think
Totally.
I'm definitely very much that person who needs variety in my life. This is something that, not that I didn't like working in the tasting room, but especially for the smaller wineries where we had, the same seven wines to talk about and all day, every day. It was fun, it was fun and it was fun to meet people and everything, but I definitely am very much a person who likes that variety in my life. So to me that sounds like such a great
Yeah,
opportunity.
absolutely. I mean, I had a brief stint working for a winery as well, and I just, as like you said, as fun as it was and as cool as it was to sort of see, inside, what the winemaking process is like and becoming a little bit more, knowledgeable about a specific brand and
Mhm.
really having a better understanding of those wines. That's great and all, but probably like you, I got into this industry because I love the variety of wine. I like trying new things and it kind of becomes a little stale. You sort of feel like you have the same spiel. You're not really challenging yourself anymore.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's exactly like you said. It's great to have the variety. I love that day to day is different. I never know exactly what's going to happen when I log onto my computer in the morning. So,
Right. Yeah.
yeah, it's a great job for sure. And it sounds kind of glamorous, but it's not all fun and games. I mean, there's boring reports to look at every day. There's lots of emails to handle, and so it's great and all, but it's got its challenges too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I remember helping out. Gosh, it was before Christmas, and part of the content team was kind of helping out on that back end, and I was like, wow, that is some complicated stuff.
Yeah, for sure, for
Yeah,
sure. I mean, the holidays are crazy in this industry, no matter what
right.
role you have.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So you did then go ahead a few years back, and I know you passed WSET level 3, the certification.
Mhm.
Did you jump into level 2 at the point, or did you start from level 1 and then 2, 3?
Actually, I started with level 3.
Oh,
Um,
you know,
yeah,
of course.
Well, I'm really lucky that I learned a lot about wine in my first job. We were tasting wines all the time. I was handling, bottles from all over the world.
Hmm.
And I actually first started out with the Court of Master Sommelier.
Oh, okay.
I did level one, which is
Hmm.
just like a general introduction to wine, kind of
Yeah.
just understanding the basics, which I'm pretty sure is similar to level one of WSET.
Hmm.
But I was told that, just given my background, I should go ahead and just jump to level three. And so that's what I did. And I loved it. The Court of Master Psalms, I'm not sure if a lot of people have seen the Psalm documentary and
Hmm.
understanding that whole crowd. But it didn't really appeal to me.
It's a boys' club.
It's 100% a boys' club. And it's stuffy a little bit.
Hmm.
And, it's not to bash people who are on that route, but I learned pretty quickly that I had no interest in becoming an actual som. I didn't really want to
Right.
work the floor at a restaurant.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, service is not necessarily my passion.
Sure.
And WSET is an amazing program because it focuses on the business of wine as well
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
understanding regions and tasting and all of it. So to me, it just felt like a more practical route, and I absolutely loved it. I met some of my best friends through that program, and
Right.
just felt like I took was able to take my career to the next level by
Yeah.
completing it.
And the fact that it does focus so much on the business side is also what makes the exam so difficult.
Yeah,
Um, because you really have to think, on a bigger picture. Like, they're going to say, well, if you're a winemaker in New Zealand and you want to produce a Sauvignon Blanc, that is easily available to the masses and yada yada yada, and how would you go about this? And you're just kind of sitting there going, oh dear.
no, exactly. You're like, I didn't realize you needed to go to business school to,
Yeah.
succeed
Yeah.
with this program. But no, I think it's just a more well-rounded way to learn about the industry. And
Mhm.
so yeah, I mean, as hard as the exam was and as many hours as I spent studying for it, I wouldn't change anything about it. I think it's just, they're not there to pressure you. You don't feel like you're being set up to fail. They want you to
Right.
learn. And that's
Yes.
there's classes, there's instructors,
Yeah.
there's study groups, and each
Hmm.
week you're learning and you're being taught. I feel
Yeah.
like with the court, you're kind of given materials and told to go study, and then you show up for an exam and, Godspeed,
Yeah.
So the WSET, it's truly education.
Yeah. And we did talk, listeners, about the court before in another episode. I will find that episode and put it in the show notes so you can kind of catch up a little bit on what the Court of Master Sommeliers is all about. So now my question for you is, any ambitions to go for diploma?
It's the $1 million question. Yes and no. Besides, the financial burden of continuing the education,
Yeah, oh sure.
it's a time suck. You have to dedicate a lot of your time to studying and tasting and reading, and just it takes a lot of your focus. And while I do think that diploma could be amazing for me in my career potentially, I don't know if it's 100% necessary. And I also want to just enjoy my life. I like my free time. I
Mm-hmm.
like my weekends. And my partner and I just moved to Los Angeles. It's an amazing city. I want to have free time to explore and go
Yeah.
taste new wine. And,
Yeah.
at the same time, when you're so focused on studying, it sort of takes the fun away from wine. It
Mm-hmm.
makes it feel like homework and not,
Yeah.
the thing that drew you into the industry to begin
Right.
with.
Yeah.
So I go back and forth. I think about it a lot, but we'll see. I'm not sure at this moment. I don't have plans to do it, but that could
Mm-hmm.
change.
Yeah. That's it for me. Level three. I'm done.
Yeah.
Although I do have the textbook for the CSW staring at my face every day.
Oh, wow.
Um, and the more I think about it, the more I'm scared of it. But I don't know, like part of me just always wants to be in school.
I know. I
So
know. I know.
I don't
And
know.
it does force you to continue to learn.
Yes.
And I do like that. I think it's easy to sort of get into your routine and stop
Mhm.
pushing yourself to learn.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's quite the undertaking. So
Yeah.
I totally get it.
Yeah, it sure is. I think now, and I keep bringing this up, but I'm an empty nester now, and so I'm kind of filling my time anyway with just things that I want to be doing. I just had a conversation with Maria Ponzi, which the episode just released, and she and I are very much on that same page of, wanting a variety of things in our lives. And it's not just that one thing. I want to do it all.
Yeah,
So now I have all of this time on my hand and I actually can. So it's going to be really interesting those next couple of years to see where this journey is going to take me.
for sure. I actually just listened to that episode
Oh,
and it was
gotcha.
great. She is amazing. And what I thought was interesting is she was talking about, that year after selling the business and
Mhm.
they traveled, but then with this freedom came, new challenges that
Yeah.
just were kind of unexpected. And so it's, no matter which decision you make, you're always going to find things to kind of
Yeah.
distract you. But
Yeah. That's true. That is very true. Oof. So have you traveled to any of the regions that you're buying these wines from? Like, is there, do you make these connections sometimes and going, oh yeah, that's in that region?
Yes, I am really lucky to have traveled to a few places. I could kick myself because in college I actually spent a significant amount of time in Italy, and this was before I was even in the wine industry. And thinking back to all the opportunities I could have had if I knew what I was even
Yep.
where I was and how close I was to some of the most incredible places in the whole world, I would have done it all differently. But no, since getting into the industry, a couple years ago, I had the opportunity to travel to the south of France with my mom, which was a
Oh,
really special trip.
yeah.
And we spent some time in Provence, which was just
Oh,
incredible and
yeah. Beautiful.
honestly like heaven on earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was the first time traveling abroad since getting in the industry and going to a wine region, and it changed the way I feel like I studied wine. And now when I come back, having touched the soil and tasted the wine, and when you come back and anytime I drink a rosé from Provence, I'm immediately transported back to that
Yeah.
trip, and I can remember the smells and I can remember the sounds, and it's just a really special thing. And so now I'm kind of hooked. So I also had the opportunity to go to Tuscany a couple years ago with my partner Chris, and he's also in the wine industry. So that was really special for us.
Yeah.
Just again touching the soil and just seeing the physical location of where these vineyards are. It really just changes everything.
Yeah.
And I love that aspect of you know, coming back and smelling the wine and truly just being able to remember everything about the trip. And you just have fun memories that pop up from that. So I'm hoping to be able to visit some more. I don't have any trips coming up to wine regions. This one's a little bit different. I'm actually going to Scotland in the fall with my family, and we're going to
Oh,
be doing some Scotch tasting. So
oh my gosh.
yeah. So
I
that should be fun. Different than wine, but it's still great.
I so want to go to Scotland. That is one of our big trips on our bucket list. Though I don't drink scotch. Like I will drink bourbon, scotch, and I realize there are some not so smoky scotch varieties, but I just generally they're far too smoky for me.
Hmm.
So I'm having a really hard time with them. But, I could drink something else in
Yeah,
Scotland.
it's definitely an acquired taste for sure. But, that's going to be a small part of the trip. We're going to also, see the beautiful land. And my family, we have Scottish heritage, and we're going
Sure.
for my dad's 70th birthday, which was in 2020. So the trip got pushed a little bit.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, it's going to be really special. So looking
Oh,
forward
that
to it.
sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Mm, makes me want to travel.
I know. I know. That's the dangerous part of this job is, anytime you pick up a bottle from anywhere, you're like, huh, let me just look and see what this looks like. Oh, there's an
Yeah.
Airbnb link to these places.
Yeah.
And
Ugh,
yeah, slippery
no.
slope.
I just need to, I don't know, win the lottery or something cool like that, and I can always travel for a living.
There you go. Wouldn't that be nice?
Do, recordings in every country and, bring women of the wine industry of the entire world
Take it
to
on the
get
road.
this. That would be so amazing. Okay, moving on. So I feel like we've kind of already covered this question more or less. Many people find that once they join that industry, there's no getting away from it. Do you feel this way? Do you see yourself working in the wine industry for decades to come?
I definitely do.
Mhm.
I love this industry.
Yeah,
And the beauty of it is that there's so many different routes you can take. There's within this industry, there's, 100 different jobs that you can
yeah,
have.
sure.
I've had a focus on retail and I've done a little bit of work in wine bars too. But, I just love that everything that this industry has to offer. I love the people for the most part. And
Okay.
it's hard to find a bad day. I
Hmm.
At the end of the day, we're just talking about wine and drinking wine and learning about other cultures and travel and food goes hand in hand with this role too. And so it's hard to complain about it, and I can't really imagine myself doing anything else.
Right.
I feel like I'm lucky that I got into it at a young age and fresh out of college. It's my first job out of college, so I love it. I don't see myself switching gears.
Right.
Never say never. Anything could
Sure.
happen, but I definitely don't have plans to leave.
Yeah, yeah, I can appreciate that. I actually, I was ready, and not to be taking that into the wrong direction, but I was ready to stick with wine.com. Unfortunately, I was one of the people who were laid off, but I was having a really good time. Like, it felt very, very good as a company. I loved my team, the content team. Alma was an amazing manager for me. And so I could have totally seen myself continuing on that route.
For sure.
But with that said, I may not have ever started my podcast.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
absolutely.
definitely one of those things that I decided doing after, I had to ask myself, so now what? What do I want to do?
Right.
So it all kind of worked out serendipitously in the end. Um, but so as a woman, when you think of yourself as a woman in this industry, did you ever encounter any roadblocks that you feel men did not? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that they were obvious roadblocks or, major hurdles necessarily, but snide comments. I
Mhm.
think just in addition to being a woman in this industry, I was also very young when I started. I
Sure,
was,
sure.
23 years old when I first started in the job. And
Mhm.
I actually became a manager of a retail shop pretty quickly, which again, I'm grateful that they gave me that opportunity. But I think youth coupled with being a woman kind of contributed to issues that I had, whether that be with fellow management thinking that I'm, below them, or customers saying, well, there must be somebody above you I can talk to,
Sure.
or,
Sure. Mhm.
just maybe people assuming that I don't have the knowledge and education that I do, and I am qualified to be holding these positions. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, those things definitely, reared their ugly head. And like we mentioned earlier, the boys club mentality that comes with some of the higher education in this industry, that's there and it's definitely present.
Yeah.
But I was really lucky that the owner of the Ferry Plaza Wine Merchant, the first job I had in this industry, was a woman, and she was very powerful and strong, and she was an inspiration for sure.
Yeah.
But I looked up to her, and I could just see the way she handled things, and
Sure.
she didn't let anybody bring her down or talk down to her or get in her way at all. She was just really an inspiration. So that was something I looked up to. And I had another coworker who then turned boss and now friend give me my first buying job, and
Mhm.
just having women who kind of paved the way ahead of me, it just helped me keep going. So to
Yeah.
just kind of ignore the comments, ignore the attitude that I could sometimes be faced with, but
Mhm.
I tried not to let it get too in the way. Um, I also have an amazing supportive partner, and
Right.
I come from a really strong mother, and she, just having the support that some people maybe don't have kind of help you keep going.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think it definitely does help to have these other female role models. I have a very strong mother. Um, and it's so interesting because, she's post-war Germany, where that generation was really kind of breaking out of this mold. By the time my mom was a young adult, she was like, what are you saying? I can't have my own bank account. What are you saying? I can't make my own decisions about where I'm going to work, and all of those decisions. And so she was definitely one of those, I'll show you. um
right,
and then, of course, having other women in the industry is very, very helpful, I think, to look up to. And this is why I love having, some of these women on the podcast and being able to talk to them and having them be very, very open and candid about what they think you need to be doing in order to get where you want to be.
right. No, totally. And just listening, I listened to several of your episodes, and just hearing everybody and, what they've gone through and the different positions they hold. And it's just very inspiring. And I love the community that you're creating. And, I love that there's so many women in wine, gatherings and boards. And
Yeah.
it's really a special thing.
Yeah, I agree. So, to pivot just a little bit, you obviously started out in San Francisco and then you relocated to Los Angeles. Can you share some locations in both of those cities that you think any wine lover should absolutely try? It can be a wine shop, bar, restaurant, something.
Sure. I am still a huge fan of the place I worked in San Francisco, the Ferry Plaza Wine Merchant. It's a huge retail and wine bar. It's in the Ferry building on the Embarcadero, kind of in downtown San Francisco.
Hmm.
They've got an amazing selection, and they rotate their wine list every week, and it's right on the water. So it's, just a really beautiful place to check out.
Yeah.
They have an awesome farmers market on Saturdays and Wednesdays. So I love that place. Whenever we go back, I'm always popping in to say hey to everybody. And
Hmm.
um, another wine shop in San Francisco is called Arlequin Wine Merchant.
Hmm.
Um, they have an incredible selection as well, and they have some older vintages that you can check out, and they have an incredibly beautiful patio that's tucked away from the street, so it's kind of a little escape. And then a wine bar that I loved there. They focus a little bit on natural wine, but which is great if you want to kind of taste some things. It's called Fool's Errand, and that's on Divisadero. I love all three of those places. I was a frequent shopper, drinker, all of the above. And I'm still new to LA. Only been here about a year, but checking out some places. There's the famous Wally's, which is in Beverly Hills.
Heard of that, yes.
Yeah, they're massive. They have, their walls are lined with bottles. It's
Hmm.
pretty impressive. That's in Beverly Hills, which is a scene,
Hmm.
kind of a different, pace than what I'm used to, but it's really, really cool place. And then somewhere I recently discovered is a wine bar called Marvin. And it feels very European. You walk in, it's got this great little like bistro lounge. They do, cafes and or espressos and lattes and, kind of coffee shop by day, wine bar by night kind of vibe, which is
Sure,
really,
sure.
really, really cool.
Oh, that sounds cool. I
Yeah.
like that.
And then of course I, order my wine from work at wine.com a lot. And spend a
Yeah.
lot of time at home drinking. Well, I don't spend a lot of time at home drinking, but you know what I mean. Like I said, my partner's also in wine, so we have a good time cooking and tasting new
Hmm.
things, and yeah,
Oh,
so
that sounds amazing.
yeah,
Well, thank you for that. I will try to put some of that information into the show notes with links. Now, if someone wanted to get into some French wines, some Italian wines, but they don't really know or don't want to spend a ton of money, yet, how would you suggest that they go about it? I know that wine.com has a really great search tool that lets you filter by region and by price and varietal and ratings, etc. But any other words of wisdom for breaking into those French and Italian wines?
yeah. I mean, like you said, wine.com has great tools to kind of teach you and show you things. But I also think just popping by your local retail store, whether that's a K&L or a smaller independent retail shop, and seeing if they host any tastings.
Hmm.
I think that tastings are a really great way to not only try a bunch of different wines, but help you understand the differences between wines. When you are new to wine, you can try, whether you're trying a Barbera for the first time or a Sangiovese for the first time, it's hard to understand the differences until you taste them side by side.
Sure.
Um, Sorry for the loud noise. But I think that tastings are a really affordable way to get the most bang for your buck. You can
Mhm.
try a variety of things without
Yeah.
fully committing to a bottle, or
Yeah, for sure.
buying something and not really knowing what you're getting and sort of regretting your decision once you open the bottle. And so if you're new to it and you don't want to necessarily commit, checking out wine shops, they're really, really helpful, in there too. They want you to learn. They want you
Yeah.
to, find the bottle that you like, no matter what your budget is.
Yeah.
I used to say that all the time to people. They'd say, I want something that's, around $15, but can I even get a good wine that's $15? And it's absolutely you can. And, whatever wine you like, that's a good bottle of wine. It doesn't have
Right.
to be a $100 bottle or more. And if you're not going to pick up on the nuances of some of those higher priced, more expensive bottles, then don't, feel the pressure to buy it just because somebody tells you it's good or it has,
Yeah.
great ratings. Yeah, so I think just checking out some local spots, and again, they want to help you, and wine.com has a really great chat program where there's
Yes.
people on the other side of the computer actually helping you. It's not a bot. There are people helping you pick
Yes,
out
they're real
bottles.
people, guys.
They
I've
are.
I've I've met them. They're real people and they will help you.
They're real people. They will help you, and they want to help you. And
Yeah.
and no matter what, your parameters are, whether you have something in mind or you want to try something new or you have a pretty strict budget, they're really great, and there's a ton of
Yeah.
variety out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, they want you to come back, Ultimately, I think that's what's so important is not only do those wines exist, but as a, salesperson or as wine.com, whatever, I want your business. I want you to come back. So you better believe that I'm going to help you to find whatever it is that you need at this point in time.
No, exactly. And you know, maybe it's different in other industries, but in our industry in particular, I mean, we're passionate about the wine we're
Yeah.
drinking, and we
Yeah.
want to share,
Right.
our knowledge, and we want to share what we think is so special about certain bottles. So
Right.
it isn't just us trying to sell something for the sake of selling it. I kind of geek out when I'm talking about wines that I love sometimes, and maybe I take it too far and people don't know what I'm talking about, but it's because I want to share it and I want you to get the most out of it as well.
Yeah. I know how when I talk about a wine, so I manage a tasting room right now and we have like 20 different wines. And every now and then I will just go out on like this whole tangent about this wine. And because I always kind of adjust my language to who I have in front of me, you can hear me talk about this is such a perfect marriage of, the Tempranillo and the Syrah. We call it the Cerrillo. and the Tempranillo is the wild one and the spicy one, and then you have the Syrah, and it kind of balances it out, and the perfect yin and the yang situation, and people eat that shit up, man.
Yes, they do. It's so true. It's
But I
completely true.
yeah, but
And
I
when you start
also
pointing out like specifics in the
yeah,
wine when you're drinking with somebody, they're like, "Oh wow, I never noticed white pepper before. I get
right.
that now." And
Yeah, yeah,
so it's fun. It's fun to
yeah,
kind of go, on a tangent, but it's,
yes.
more fun when people actually understand what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. And I say people eat that shit up like it's something bad, but really it's so fun because when I notice a light bulb, above a person's head, I know that I did something, and that excites me because I almost feel like I ignited a little fire or something. As
Yeah, for sure.
dramatic as that may sound, but it really does feel that way sometimes, and I love it. Love, love, love it.
Totally agree. It's one of those fun things about our industry.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, can you then recommend a few labels that you think me and my listeners, should try when we try to break into the Italian and French wine market?
Sure. There's a winemaker in the Beaujolais region of France that I love called Marcel Lapierre. And, the grape there is Gamay, which, if people are not that familiar with, it's a lighter bodied, kind of juicy red wine. And I gravitate towards this style of red because I do a lot of tasting for my job. And at the end of the day, my palate is sometimes really exhausted, and I just want something
Mhm.
that's lighter and easy to drink.
Yeah.
And some of the wines can come in at a higher price point from him, but there's an entry level wine called Raisin Galois that comes in under $25, maybe around $20.
Hmm.
That's a great one, and I think it's a great introduction to the region if people are not familiar with it.
Yeah.
Um, and then another wine that I've been drinking a lot. This is I think a great example of what Pinot Grigio can be. It comes from a producer called Vanica,
Hmm.
and it's a true example of Pinot Grigio. I think a lot of people picture super crisp, dry, almost like clear colored wine when they think of
Hmm.
Pinot Grigio, but this one actually has a little bit of color to it. It stays with its skin a little bit longer, so it's not
Okay.
fully an orange wine, but it's got a hint of like a pink hue to it, and
Yeah.
it's incredible. It's just complex. It's got different layers to it, and
Right.
yeah, I just think it's a great representation of what the great Pinot Grigio can be, because I think sometimes that it's sold in mass production and
Yeah. Yeah.
just kind of tastes like cold white wine, and the grape can actually be really really beautiful and have more complex notes to it. So, and both of these are on wine.com. I can send you the link for it.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, I love that you made those recommendation because it's oftentimes, if somebody, gives recommendations, they'll go like really complicated with their wine. And I feel like, Pinot Grigio and Beaujolais are such easy wines to get into. So I think those recommendations are great. So thank you so much for that. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
for sure. And it's not just, recommendations I'm trying to think of. I order these wines on repeat all the time.
Yeah.
They're great house staples for me. And the nice thing is that if you try some of these, these are grapes that you can find everywhere too. So if you like this style of wine, like if you've never had Gamay before and you try this wine and you like it, you can go into your local wine bar or shop or even grocery store. They sell
Mhm.
Gamay at Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
You can find different producers that you like, and it's just great talking points for if you're going out to dinner and you're say, I had a Gamay the other day. What do you have on this list that's similar
Right.
to it?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And,
I
and,
love
and
that.
that's how you find new wines.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, to finish this off, if you had to start over in this industry, would you do anything differently, or do you feel like your path is just exactly how you would hope it to go for literally anyone looking to break into the wine industry?
Honestly, it's gone exactly the way I would want it to go. If I'm being truthful, I love that I've worked in different areas of this industry. I love that I have retail background. I love that I've been a server at a wine bar. I love that I have, been hands on, and I'm. I learned pretty quickly that I was interested in the buying side of this industry.
Mhm.
You know, sure, I had kind of an idealized version of that in my head of what I thought it would be when I first got started. But I love kind of the curation aspect of it, and I love tasting, and I just am really grateful for the opportunity I've had to both do that in brick and mortar retail, and I worked briefly at a gourmet grocery store, and now doing it kind of behind the scenes for wine.com and on a national basis.
Mhm.
I'm really happy with where I am, and I don't think I would change anything. Honestly, I like I said, I learned early on that I didn't want to get too far into service, and
Yeah.
so ultimately, I'm happy where I am, and I think that my experiences, I wouldn't change anything because I don't think I'd be in this position today if I did.
Right. Yeah. I think I would agree with that for myself. It was definitely a good progression, starting in a tasting room with very little knowledge and then kind of making my way through a couple more tasting rooms, a wine bar, wine.com, of course, seeing thousands of labels and
Mhm.
reading lots and lots of ratings and ultimately ending up with this podcast after meeting so many women in the industry and feeling like there's a really good niche for me to fit into, and then who knows what's going to be on the horizon. That's
Yeah,
I got a few years, I hope.
totally. No, absolutely. And a lot of it's trial and error. Like you said, you started in a tasting room, and then you kind of thought, well, I love maybe a little bit more variety than this. And
Mhm.
then, just kind of switching gears. And I learned early on I don't love being a manager at a retail store. Management is not my forte.
Sure.
Same with service. It's great, and you learn a ton, and you learn how to talk to all walks of life.
Yeah.
But it's about kind of just weaving in and out and finding the right fit for you.
Yeah.
And some
Yeah.
of that is, okay, I learned I don't like this. Okay, I learned I love this. Now let me figure out how to, stay more connected on this side of things.
Sure
So,
thing. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, excellent. I think that's it for us for today. I thought it was a really lovely interview. We didn't go on too many tangents, which is great. But this is why, as listeners, you may or may not know this, I always have questions prepared before these interviews so that my guests know exactly what's going to be asked. Plus, it really kind of helps us to stay on course with the podcast so that we don't record 2 hour sessions because I could easily talk for 2 hours. And I think yesterday's interview, well, I recorded it yesterday, so it'll be a week after when your episode comes out. But anyway, so Maria's episode was definitely an example of that, which is like, oh, it's just ongoing. You just once you're getting into this conversation, you could talk forever. And well, women in
Well,
wine, it's great.
for sure. And I mean, it's easy for that to happen when, it's two people who are in the same industry and
Yeah,
clearly have the same love for the same thing.
yeah,
So, you can
exactly.
start going on and on and on. And so I appreciate the questions that you had for me. They
Oh,
just, like you
excellent.
said, kept us on track, and
Yeah.
it's my first podcast. So
Woo.
very, very easy to talk to. You made this very, very, comfortable.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you so, so much, Maggie, for being here. Maggie is on Instagram, and we're going to have her Instagram handle, of course, down in the show notes. And with all of that, all I have left to say is, of course, Prost.
Prost. Thank you so much, Uta.